on his own, more or less. He'll like hold on to Dad's hand and walked up to me. I'm in this whole get up. I'm mostly in black with the big chrome angry mask on, and he's just staring up at me with nothing but smiles. He's just enjoying the fact that this guy's got a chrome face. Oh, and look, he's handing me these bright colored objects. Sure, put them in my basket, Dad.
Don't
I wonder what kids like that would have responded if I'd actually had the ability to do the Halloween costume I wanted to do.
Hmm.
I
Don't
wanted
put
to, I
this.
wanted to, I wanted to go as a Morton Joe.
Don't put this on the stream, but I'm sharing the photo from 2 years ago of my niece as Pennywise and her father as Georgie carrying an arm.
Mm,
Yeah, I won't share on stream, but that sounds interesting enough. I'll have a quick look. Oh, okay.
yeah.
Trying to think. Oh, I had one family. Actually, the first family I think that showed up is actually a family that keeps being regulars in my neighborhood for trick or treating. They were dressed like Scooby and the Gang this year, and I was just coming out of the door, so they were kind of unenthused by my initial appearance, and they're like, "Oh, we were expecting a little more scary." I'm like, "I just got here." You want scary? Here's scary. Boom, boom. Theme to the thing starts playing. And then they're like, "Oh, okay, this is a little more effective." And then I just stand still, holding the jar, and it's like, "Uh huh, yeah. You just caught me coming outside. That's all. You gotta give me a moment to set up, then I'm ready."
Yeah, I haven't had trick or treaters since 1995.
Try to think. Actually, I was expecting lower numbers this year. We got about the medium average.
That's because you people are crazy.
That's
I
because that's because we're in the middle of bumfuck nowhere and nothing's hit us hard, at least.
Yes, I know. I want to know um
In 2 weeks,
in
what our
about
numbers are going to look like.
what the numbers are overall.
I've heard a lot of parties happened.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
I
on
know
the positive side, I also heard of a lot of people coming up with really innovative COVID-free ways to share candy that people are saying could be really helpful for, you know, like kids with disabilities trick or treating in the future that can't go up steps.
Well, for kids like that, I literally just walk to the end of our walkway and just go, "Here."
Mm.
Just have to
I
reach out
know
and grab it.
I know the idiots at the university broke quarantine to frickin' party on Halloween because they're
I'm
fucking
not even a
morons.
little surprised.
I will
My
also add that my entire costume, I was completely covered head to foot. And with my chrome mask on, I also had an extra layer underneath the chrome mask, not only to help hide my face in broad daylight, but also to, well, help with the COVID thing, too.
That's part of the reason why I wanted to go as a Morton Joe.
Actually,
Because
that's why I
that
would go out as a plague doctor if I had the money for a plague doctor mask.
oh yeah, that's actually been kind of common.
Yeah, the plague doctor has been kind of common, even though the initial reaction to plague doctors was a rather negative knee jerk, which was unneeded. But hey, whatever.
Yeah.
So
Anyway, anybody else have anything else they want to talk about before we go on to tonight's show?
I don't think
no,
so. I feel like I had something in mind, but I forgot it, so it must not have been that big.
Okay.
nothing big. Yeah.
So tonight's show, we've got some birthdays, just a couple. We've got some Big Finish news. There is no other news.
They're being very quiet if there is any.
It's been dead, and since England went back into quarantine, or back into lockdown, yeah, there's probably no news.
Yeah, I think today is when they went back into lockdown.
It was ordered over the weekend, I think.
Yeah, and they had a set date when it was going to restart again. And I think that was sometime today.
Either way, that means that, of course, if they had been planning on starting filming, they're not now.
Yeah.
We've got a couple pieces of geek talk. Then we've got our episode summary, our review, our final thoughts, and our ratings. So let's move on to birthdays, shall we? First birthday was on October 29th, right after our last podcast. It is the birthday of Michael Jaston, who played the Valeyard back in 1986. He turned 85. Then, yesterday on November 3rd, we had the birthday of Richard Herndl, who played the first Doctor in the Five Doctors anniversary special in 1983. He would have been 110, but he died in 1984 at the age of 73. You know, less than a year after the special aired.
Mm-hmm.
So far, David Bradley is doing the best.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
so
a
far
movie
he's doing the
that-
best of any of the
knocking on
first
wood
Doctors.
Yeah.
Yep. So
He seems to
happy
have broken the
birthday
curse.
a happy birthday to Michael and a posthumous happy birthday to Richard. We have no Doctor Who related lost stories, but of course we did lose veteran actor Sean Connery this week. That was kind of a major. If you don't know who Sean Connery is, where have you been?
Get out underneath the giant anvil, the giant freaking Empire State Building sized rock you live under.
If you don't know who Sean Connery is, we welcome you back to society from whatever Amish area you've lived in.
Yeah, he had some issues personally, but he definitely had a major impact on the film industry.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't.
if you look, you realize he was offered the role of Gandalf.
Yeah, he turned it down
And
because he
turned it-
didn't understand it.
Yeah, think of Sean Connery as Gandalf, and then be
he
grateful we've
didn't
had his
understand
talent.
that, but he had no problem as Ramirez.
I assume they just explained it to him better. I don't know.
So let me get this straight. I'm playing a Spaniard who's really an Egyptian, but I'm Scottish.
And there's other guy over here who's French is pretending to be Scottish. Wait a second.
Let me have a couple of drinks and we'll talk.
How much money are you paying me? That much? Fuck it. Give me another shot and I'll do it.
I don't know. An actor in the 80s, I don't know if drinks is what it was.
No, I'm just thinking he had to be really drunk to accept that role. And then go
I
on
get-
to play it again later.
He had to be exceptionally high to play the second time because that movie is just terrible.
I guess to be fair, younger generations might not be as aware just because he quit
After like the
Extraordinary
flops like
Gentleman.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, yeah, he just decided to give up.
He was just like, yeah, I'm out.
Really? He did stop after that?
There's like one or two
Yeah.
things afterwards, but
I
that was
forget
supposed to be his
his
big thing,
la-
and then it bombed.
His last credit as an actor was 2012, and he only has
Ah.
only 6 credits in the past 21 years.
So he became one of those actors that just chose what he did.
He chose what he did, and he chose poorly frequently enough that he decided to just give up.
No, what I mean is, there's roles you do for the money. There's roles you do for favors. And there's roles you do because you really want to do them. Sean Connery was big enough that he could choose the roles he could do because he really wanted to do them.
Because I'm just thinking, well, I can't think of examples off the top of my head of the third one. I know that
And one of those 6 roles was him playing James Bond in a video game.
Yeah, that was actually not even sure if that's actually new audio from him. It might have just been audio taken
it
from
might have
one of
just
his
been from a
previous
movie.
movies.
Because I know some of the Bond movies he did, he was just doing it for money. Because I think it was like, okay, I'll come back, but you have to give me this money to start up a charity or something. And then he got talked into or had to do Never Say Never Again as like, well, I had a thing where I've able to make this movie, so you have to come back for that.
Well, it probably was a favor to the director or the producer.
Probably.
Yeah, more likely the producer, I think.
Because that's the way it kind of works. It's one of the ways that Kevin Smith gets, all the star power that builds up little bit stuff in his thing. Is, it's like, yeah, I did this for you a while back. I got a little bit part in a movie I'm working on. Can you come in and do that? It's like, okay.
I was gonna say he kind of lampshades that in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Oh yeah, well that was him lampshading most of what he did.
Yeah.
But that's the way Hollywood works. Is you've got when you're starting, you're basically doing roles for the money, and you've got people that will recommend you for these roles so that you're making pay.
Mm-hmm.
Once you've made it, once one of those things becomes a success, you're big enough, these people that, recommended you go like, I recommended you for this. So I'm working on this. I need you to come in and fill this role for me so I have a little star power. And they're like, okay. And then, a lot of them alternate, the one they need to do for the big bucks and the movie they want to do. Just so that they can keep themselves wealthy and
not completely insane.
Mm-hmm.
Well, where did he retire to? I forget. That was like out in the middle of nowhere compared to where he started from. I forget where it was now.
But yeah. He apparently possibly went into tax exile.
He went to the Bahamas. That's where he passed away.
Well, if you're going to retire, the Bahamas is a nice place to do it.
Right? It also shows that he must have made at least some bank on some of the stuff he had done.
Yeah.
Looking at his cast listing reminds me that the first thing I knew him from was playing an animated dragon in an otherwise live-action movie.
Oh, no. The first thing I remember seeing him in was The Hunt for Red October, where he played the Russian captain.
Which one came first for me? You know what? I think it was Indiana Jones that was first for me with Sean.
Oh, wait. Yeah, it was probably Indiana Jones. Now that you say that.
The first indie movie I ever saw was the fourth one. It wasn't until sometime in the past 10 years that I watched the first three.
Shame.
I mean, I knew who he was.
I think I knew a little bit of him being around somewhere, but that was the first time I definitely saw one of his movies all the way through was the Indiana Jones movie.
Indiana Jones, and then I saw him the very next year in Red October.
I want to say possibly like 5 or 10 years later, I saw him in Highlander.
And then the year after Red October, I saw him in the cameo in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Oh, actually, you know what? I think I saw him in Prince of Thieves before I saw him in Highlander. Now that you mention that.
If we're talking this, it might be worth mentioning that Sean Connery was one of the relatively first internet memes, because Finding Forrester was what all of the premises of YTMND were based on.
And then it was right after Prince of Thieves where his career started to take a nosedive.
Sadly.
Because that's where he did First Night, Dragonheart. I think the
Dragonheart was still okay. It's like some of the 2000s is when it really just
yeah.
It was coasting for a while, but then the 2000s hit, and then it just literally did a nosedive like a steel rock into a freaking pool.
It's also like a semi to full retirement than anything else.
Yeah, well, at that point, he also knew he was too old to do action movies.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's what he was known as, was an action star.
Right. And then, I'm guessing League of Extraordinary Gentlemen had some action in it. And
it was a comic book action movie.
Yeah.
Right. And then after that, I'm saying his role in particular, I should have
as Alan Quartermain, yeah.
But then after that, he did a TV series documentary, a video game, a voice role in a TV movie documentary, and another voice role.
Yeah.
So he pretty much retired from there.
Yeah, he was just doing voice acting, which, is what you do when you can't do action anymore. You can just lend your voice to stuff. Mm-hmm. It's basically what Patrick Stewart was doing until they decided to get him back for Picard. And you can tell when if you've watched Star Trek Picard, you can tell he's not really up for action scenes anymore.
It's pretty obvious that every once in a while they slip in a double, yeah.
And Professor X wasn't exactly known for his action scenes.
No, he spent most of his time in a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
But, it is sad because Sean Connery was such a huge part of film. And, all those stories, about the production of James Bond movies and the making of Highlander and working with Harrison Ford on Last Crusade. Yeah, we'll never get to hear those again straight from the mouth.
Mm.
Kind of how it's kind of on the same level of death as when we lost Christopher Lee.
Yeah, pretty much is. They're actually from more or less the same generation of filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Still, if you can choose a way to go on the beach in the Bahamas, that's how I'd like to go.
Yeah, that's not exactly the bad place to go.
Hmm.
How old was he?
So, yeah. Now we've only got 4
He
Bond
was
actors
90.
left.
He was 90. Yeah, that's a good run.
He had a very decent run.
Hmm.
Does it actually give a cause of death, or is he just labeled it that way?
Oh, thought I saw something. No, that's the date he died, where he died.
No, they didn't. They did not disclose the cause of death, but they did mention he had been unwell for some time. So that was
Right.
probably the reason for his retirement too. Was he was not well.
Mhm.
Yeah, he might have been getting something for health issues already before then, and he's just like, you know what, it's getting worse. Let's just back off for now.
Apparently, he did have some form of dementia in his later years, so that might have
That
not helped.
never helped.
That would not have helped. Yeah.
So that might have also been why they were on, a small island, just, keep him away from the public so that, they don't, the paparazzi don't take pictures of
So
him. in his
paparazzi don't take pictures, and so that the fans don't have to see him kind of, slowly going.
slowly deteriorate. Because, yeah, that sucks. But yeah, that's another actor who will be missed by some, despised by others, but that's par for the course.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't even care about looking at the bad stuff. You just need to be focusing on the good parts of what they did, to be honest. So many people have a bad side. It doesn't matter at some point. The little things.
Time to stop talking ill of the dead.
Yeah.
All right. So that'll take us to the big finish news we have. There's 3 new releases this week. Bernice Summerfield has released the Christmas collection, featuring Lisa Bowerman, of course. War Master came out with a new DVD, Killing Time, with Derek Jacobi, of course. And Short Trips, Blue Boxes with Mark Reynolds. It's a Third Doctor adventure.
That's right. Killing Time was the one with Nissa and Joe Grant, right?
Yes. I know Joe Grant at least is on there. I didn't know if I saw Nessa there.
Yeah, I think that sounds all right.
I'm curious how they get that to work. I may look it up at some point.
Yeah, that might be interesting. And then free this week.
Yeah. That's just okay. Anyway, yep.
Yeah, free this week from the Big Finish website is Bernice Summerfield audio Silver Lining, which is apparently her versus Cybermen.
I would think the title would be enough to give that away, but yeah. When else does Doctor Who do a silver title?
Anyway, that is it for our Big Finish news, and that is it for our news. So, we will move on to the Geek Talk
Geek
area.
Talk, which, yes, movies first. So, Randy.
Yes. So, like I mentioned, on Halloween, Aaron and I sat down, and it's traditional for me to watch a horror movie on Halloween. I usually watch it late at night because we had a stream. We actually watched this around dusk. And what we chose to watch this year was the movie Poltergeist, which I have seen many times before, but I wanted to take a critical eye at look at it and take a look at how it holds up after nearly 40 years. The answer is pretty damn good.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you that don't know, Poltergeist is a movie idealized by Steven Spielberg and directed by, what was his name? I have suddenly just forgot the name of the actor or the director that actually directed it. Tobe Hooper. And it's about a family living in a new development project in Southern California whose house, and in particular their daughter, is the subject of a massive supernatural event. This movie went on to spawn a chain of much shittier movies,
As you do.
which I tend to ignore because they completely and totally subvert the plot of the main movie. This movie starred Craig T. Nelson as the father, Jo Beth Williams as the mother, and what was the name of the daughter? Heather O'Rourke, who died several years later, and also the actress that played the elder daughter died a few months later. She was murdered.
Oof.
Yeah. Actually, most of the people in the movie are dead by now, except for Craig T. Nelson and Jo Beth Williams. And I think the young boy, the person that played the young boy in there, Robbie, is still alive.
Oliver Robbins.
Yep. But he's into writing and directing now.
As you do.
Anyway, this Spielberg was highly involved with this, but he couldn't officially direct it because he was under contract to direct E.T. at the time. And that was an exclusive contract. But he basically functioned as assistant director and producer.
As you do when you're Spielberg.
Mm-hmm. While Tobe said, lights, camera, action, Spielberg did all the storyboarding, directing the second unit, that kind of thing. And it shows. There are scenes where you can actually tell this has the Spielberg feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
The special effects still hold up to this day, except for a couple. There is one scene where a guy peels off his face, and you can tell that they used kind of the same makeup guy that they did for the first Raiders movie in the scene where they open up the Ark of the Covenant.
Mm-hmm.
So while that was nice at the time, you can tell now, 30, 40 years down the road, that is a prosthetic mask.
Well, at least in the Indiana Jones one, I feel that one's a little more timeless. Whereas this one, yeah, you can kind of tell after a few moments that it's not real. Although there's some noises that still make it kind of go, ugh.
Oh yeah, it's still a gross out scene, but you can tell the mask. You can tell it's a mask.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the ghost stuff still holds up today. It looks 1,000 times better than the 2015 Ghostbusters movie did. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff in there, you can kind of tell is where they had the inspiration for some of the ghosts in the original Ghostbusters movie. It's like, I got to talk to these guys, figure out how they did this shit, and then do it our way, Just make a slight variant. Because it has that same feel. And
actually, who did the special effects for it? If it was Light and Magic, then it's the same people.
Probably was, considering this is Spielberg.
Did you say for Ghostbusters?
Yeah, I know for
no.
Ghostbusters it was Light and Magic.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure about Poltergeist, though.
Gotcha.
It doesn't say, but I think it probably was, considering it was a Spielberg production. So
Considering it's a Spielberg production, and Spielberg and
Lucas
Lucas
were
are the main ones that got that thing going because they kept using them. Yeah.
Yep.
All it says is they got a BAFTA and were nominated for an Oscar, but lost it to E.T.
Yeah, because E.T. freaking... And the thing is, E.T. doesn't hold up half as well as Poltergeist does.
Nowadays, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I've never been quite as entranced by E.T. as Poltergeist.
One of the main things that is the most amazing about this film is the acting of Heather O'Rourke, who was 5 at the time they did this. You have a 5-year-old girl playing a 5-year-old girl, and she was absolutely perfectly in character the entire time. I mean, you know the old saying, "Don't work with children," is an old Hollywood statement. Heather O'Rourke apparently just took to acting like nobody's business.
Sometimes you hit it lucky. Most of the time you don't.
It really does. It literally does depend upon who you hire.
Yeah, I googled it, and there's literally a page for Poltergeist on ILM's site. So yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird. She was Carol Ann for all 3 movies. I thought for some reason she was the one that kept getting replaced every time they made a sequel.
No, I think it was the older daughter got replaced.
Yeah, I think it must be the older sister that kept getting replaced, and that was the one that was cursed.
Well, no, she had to be replaced because she died the year after the movie came out.
Yeah,
the original one.
I always thought it was the little blonde girl, but no, it's she was the one that kept going through all the movies. But whoever kept playing her older sister apparently was the tragic role that kept getting cursed and having something happen to that person to the point that they had to replace them every movie.
Yeah, because the original one, Dominic Dunn, was killed by her boyfriend, basically on Halloween that year. The day before Halloween. She had broke up with him a few weeks before, and he did not take it well. Psycho.
Yeah.
But no, Heather O'Rourke was in all the movies, though in the final one, the Poltergeist 3, she had giardiasis, which is something also known as beaver fever, which she contracted from well water in her family's home in Big Bear. And it gave her Crohn's disease. So she had, while she was filming Poltergeist 3, she had to take these cortisone injections that basically it resulted in her cheeks swelling up. So it was, she became very self-conscious about that. And then she died the year after they filmed Poltergeist 3. She began exhibiting flu-like symptoms and then collapsed due to septic shock. And that was a true shame because she was 13.
Yeah, she would have been just into her teens. She had a promising future ahead of her at that point, even if the sequels are a little lackluster.
Yeah, she was an amazing. Oh yeah, she had roles all over the place after Poltergeist. She had a recurring role on Happy Days. She had been on Webster, the new Leave It to Beaver. She was a child celebrity. She had a nice acting career ahead of her, and it was just cut short by disease. Such
Holy
a shame.
Heck, she was in an episode of Chips.
Yep.
And Fantasy Island.
Yep. But back to the movie itself. The special effects hold up well. The story holds up well. Unlike its sequels, which no.
The second one is okay. The third one got really weird.
No, the thing about the second one I don't like is it completely and utterly negates the whole reason for the first movie. Because I can tell you this, it's a 40-year-old movie, so I will spoiler this. The whole reason in the first movie they're getting this whole supernatural event is the developer that built this suburb that they live in, built it on top of a cemetery. He moved the headstones to another location, but didn't move the bodies.
Hmm.
So they're living basically on top of 100 corpses. And the corpses are kind of taking umbrage to that.
Mm-hmm.
The second movie turns around and basically says, no, even lower than that, there was a cult that lived there 150 years ago run by this bad guy. And he's the big bad evil. So they basically turn it into almost a slasher style.
Because they needed to go bigger.
Yeah, and the fact is, though, it just kind of like, no, it wasn't the corpses. It wasn't the corpses. It was these guys. Just kind of makes me grumble at the remaining two movies.
That sounds like a studio exec decision to me.
It does.
Yeah,
does.
it's a bit shoehorned just to give a reason to have a sequel.
But this movie, taken by itself without sequels, is an amazing piece of film. If you've never seen it, you need to see it. Even if you don't like horror, mind you, some of it is horror. It's not jump scare horror. It's just kind of the freaky shit supernatural horror. And other parts of it is just almost Spielberg fantasy. If you've ever loved a Spielberg film, this was originally conceived as a sequel for Close Encounters of the Third Kind. But Tobe said, no, let's turn it into a ghost movie. And Spielberg said, yeah, let's do that. And that's how the idea was spawned. So if you've ever liked a Spielberg film, you'll probably like this.
Mm-hmm.
If you like supernatural horror, you will like this.
I've seen at least 4 or 5 people react to it this year due to the Halloween season. They all loved it. They were floored by it.
Mm-hmm. This, actually, I think the effects in this put most modern special effects to shame.
Yes,
Because most modern special effects just use all CGI to
movies
do this
like
shit.
this and Ghostbusters and a couple of other 80s movies are why CG just doesn't work for me, because I've seen more realistic stuff done by hand.
This creeps me out a hell of a lot more than a lot of modern horror does.
I think more Poltergeist is better at being scary than like anything I saw in the 2000s as a kid in the theaters.
I saw this movie originally when I was 8 years old.
By the way, I went to see The Grudge and The Ring. It was mildly creepy, but that was about all it got on me. It's like, oh, okay.
This was back when this movie first aired on HBO. Back in the day, I saw it. And it is one of the main reasons that I had a fear of clowns through most of my childhood.
It's a good fear to have, children.
Then Doctor Who, Greatest Show in the Galaxy came along, made it worse. Then Stephen King's It came along and made it worse.
Hello there, Georgie.
So I blame all three, but this is the origin. This is the earliest one.
I will say is like, I doubt it would hold up to scrutiny now, but I remember seeing the third movie when I was still having issues with horror movies anyway, and the third one made me scared of mirrors. So
I remember that one.
Like, the visual effects are still okay, but it's the plot in particular in the sequels that kept getting worse and worse.
Yeah. The original, have you ever seen the original one, Thomas?
It's weird because I feel like I've seen bits, but I don't know if I can't recall if I've seen the entire way through. And it's annoying because a friggin' Australian streaming service has the second one, the third one, and the remake instead of the original. So I'm like, well, what the fuck?
Fuck remakes.
Get one of those private VPNs, make it spoof in America, and log into Netflix. Because, yeah, it's on Netflix here in America. And it is worth watching. Because it is so much better than its sequels. And it's so much better than a lot of horror movies today.
The main memory I have of it is that final sort of comedy shot where they kick the TV out of the hotel
everybody
room.
remembers that. And there are some funny parts of the movie.
Oh yeah, there's generally funny parts to the movie.
Especially when they're setting up the community. There's this guy who comes out, gets tripped by a bunch of kids with their like RC cars.
With their RC cars.
Starts leaking beer, and he just runs with the beer spraying all over the place into the house because they're missing a football game.
Yeah, there's also the bit about the neighbor's remote affecting their house, their house TV, and they fight over control of the TVs.
Oh yeah, it's a bit where you first think it's something supernatural, and then he goes out and starts arguing with the neighbor, and they start changing each other's televisions.
Yeah.
It is one of the few things that dates this episode, because that was the early days of remote controls.
Yeah.
So modern day shit like that doesn't happen.
One of the other amusing bits, although it's a little bit of a dark humor, is Mom about to flush the dead bird.
Yes.
Why couldn't you just die on a freaking school day?
Also, the other thing that dates it a little bit is the amount of props. The amount of toys and stuff, Star Wars related, that the little boy had. That you have to remember, this was made in 1982. Like, it was filmed in 81, released in 82, about basically the height of the Star Wars craze, because it was between the second and third movies.
Yeah.
So it was, common there that every little kid had Star Wars this and Star Wars this. He had Star Wars sheets on his bed, and at one point is toting around a Star Wars blaster, and I think there was like a Darth Vader poster on their wall.
And since the producer / co-director was buddy with the guy who made Star Wars, it was probably easy to get that stuff.
Yeah, but it does really set the era that this was in. Also, the fact that their car is a station wagon, which is not something you see anymore, because
station wagons kind of died.
SUVs, yeah. The family car became an SUV, which kind of killed the station wagon. But it's one of the old ones that had the paneling on the side, so I'm like, yeah, I remember those. Oddly enough, the house that was filmed at still exists.
I'm not surprised. A lot of them do.
And looks more or less the same, although I noticed they changed their garage doors after 40 years. I'm not that surprised.
Yeah, not surprised. Something probably broke down or got bumped into, so they need replacing. Anyway, are you good?
Anyway, I recommend this. Watch it. Okay. Thomas, watch it.
Thomas, point.
it's worth it. Moving on. Sadly, mine is not as happy as yours. I actually started off happy with this one. So I'm talking about Aliens vs. Predator. Come to find out recently through a history thing on another YouTube channel I watch, that this is actually the second game by the same company. And the third one was finally named Aliens vs. Predator 2. And by the way, versus is spelled not just VS. At least it wasn't Aliens v Predator.
Fuck you, punch somebody in the face for just making it V.
Yeah, it's not a court case.
So as I had fond memories of Aliens vs. Predator. I believe it was my cousin who died of cancer I got to borrow it from for a few years. I didn't really play the actual missions that much back then, even though I did play it a little bit. I mostly spent most of my time on it playing the skirmish mode, which was just you basically run into a giant swarm of aliens and just blasting everything to Kingdom Come, which when you're Not that great at the storyline missions at the time, is perfectly fine, and burnt hours that way. Just squishing aliens. I will say, now coming back to it, I am not an unseasoned first-person shooter. I'm pretty sure everyone in this room can tell you that, or on this call can tell you that. I have played all of the Doom games up to 2016. I have conquered the original trilogy of Wolfenstein games. I'm currently working through the Jedi Knight games, which started off as first-person shooters. I'm a seasoned person at this. Aliens vs. Predator is a gobsmackingly hard game. I had to turn it on easy to finish 2 of the 3 sections of the game. And even then I died multiple times. I actually got through the aliens part of the game. You get to play aliens, marines, and the Predator. I got through the aliens part with a little bit of a struggle. But I got there eventually. Your big final act is you get to fight 2 Predators, both of them in different rooms. And then you go off and finally escape into a ship and start an invasion on Earth. Okay. That's generally what an alien's main target would be. Yeah, sure. The Marines, though, I got up to, I think it was the 3rd mission. Couldn't get through it because I didn't realize that one particular beam in one room was something I needed to shoot with my gun in order to make a bridge. Found out about that and tried the next mission and immediately just got crushed by how many endless waves of aliens they keep throwing at you. The xenomorphs are just bloody endless for everyone else. And when you're playing a xenomorph, you're in an army of one. And whenever you're playing anyone else, you're just constantly getting waves, even on normal. So I had to literally tweak everything down to easy so there's less spawns. And things died relatively about the same amount. They didn't actually, thankfully, make it bullet spongy when you up the difficulty. But there was definitely a noticeable lack of number of enemies, which, how relentless the waves of xenomorphs is actually a godsend. Also not helped is how frustrating the final mission for the Marines is. Literally, you walk through a door, it locks behind you, and you're trapped in a giant room of an alien queen. Your task in this room is to figure out, with 0 hints, 0 help, 0 anything for input, that you are supposed to notice that there are air vent gratings across the floor that you can shoot or blow up. You're supposed to find out that there's a button hidden in somewhere in this maze of stuff, and that you're supposed to push that and open up a panel inside the air vents that you can open up, and then you need to shoot the pipes in there so that way you deactivate the safety for the airlock. Then you need to go to the airlock panel, push the first button there to open up the panel, and then you need to come back around and push the 2 other buttons that open up both ends of the airlock. And when this is happening, you need to be not near the airlock while it's opening, because it's going to start sucking you and the queen towards it, and you need to get inside one little room, barely big enough for your character, that you need to push another button to make a sliding glass door come down and protect you, and so you don't suffocate or get accidentally pulled into the freaking airlock. Good luck!
Breathe,
That-
Matt. Breathe.
That
Games
was...
were harder back then.
Dude, I was doing the double middle finger dance. The last time I did that was when I got really frustrated during a live stream of Fall Guys, which, by the way, is a game I've uninstalled from my computer.
Yeah. Think of your blood pressure.
But I will say again that the normal levels, the Predator still has an issue of being overswarmed by xenomorphs, because even though you got some weapons that'll one-shot xenomorphs, they still come in endless waves, and at some point you're going to just get choked in a freaking hallway by like 4 or 5 of them. Not to mention, also, Marines and Predators are instantly killed if a facehugger gets near you. Just, if you didn't notice it, accidentally got too close to it, boom, dead. Start the level over if you didn't save somewhere. Oh, and also, harder difficulties means that you have less number of saves per level. Normal means you have 4 slaves in a level. Easy means you get 8. Why is this a thing? As if the game wasn't hard enough on its own. But here's the most ridiculous thing, right? So, the end of the Predator level, your last level is once again an alien queen fight. What happens between levels is you fall down a pit right into the middle of the hive, and it's just her and a couple of eggs. And the eggs don't even have facehuggers in them anymore. It's just a giant alien room fight with the queen. Somehow, in the immediate fall into this room, you lost your pistol, you lost your returnable disc, you lost your shoulder cannon, you lost, I think there was like 1 or 2 other things. You were literally down to only your wrist blades and the spear gun. I immediately walked into this, tried swapping weapons, and went, what the fuck? But here's the crazier thing. It doesn't matter, because if you just sit there with the spear gun and keep shooting the queen from a distance, you just win. They handed the win on the last level to the Predator. Just handed it away. The easiest level in the game. I want to love this game. The story, there's a minimal amount of story here, but it was perfectly fine and tied together well enough between the 3 different characters you're playing. But man, oh man, is the difficulty just berserkly weird in all the directions. So I would recommend it only on easy mode if you really want to give this one a try. Otherwise, I would say I think I'm going to try some of the later ones, maybe if I can find them. But otherwise, yeah, this one is supposed to be one of the best ones in the franchise. I'm like, this one's at best mediocre. These guys didn't really know how to plot powers, character powers, and know how to create a decently easy to follow level when you've got so much convoluted stuff going on. Just kind of hodgepodgey. Oh, that's the other thing about the Marines too, is that they love to hide all these little switches and nozzles you need to keep turning on to get somewhere. And your reward is to go into another level full of switches and nozzles and trying to fight off endless swarms of more xenomorphs. Yay! So yeah, very much a mixed bag for me. There are definitely times where I was legitimately very annoyed, and other times where I'm like, oh my word. Glorious, but so weird. So yeah, I'm mixed bag Aliens vs. Predator. If you're a big fan of either one, I'd say give it a try. Maybe play your favorite.
All right. So that's it?
That's about it for them.
All right, and that's it for our Geek Talk. Now we move on to our main event and our episode summary.
Yep.
Which I do believe this week is Thomas.
Yep, I believe we called that before stream.
Yeah, thankfully I knew in time before I watched it, so I was able to take notes.
Alrighty.
I was gonna say you asked, but you didn't respond, so I hope you remembered to pay enough attention.
Are you ready to go?
Yep.
All right. Start in 3, 2, 1. Proceed.
Okay, we open on some sort of mining project or geological thingy, where some people seem to be getting attacked and killed by an unseen force, with one man managing to get off a distress signal that is intercepted by the Doctor and Sarah Jane, who end up landing on the planet, which we later find out is called Zeta Minor. Another group of people arrive on the planet who turn out to be looking for the original expedition, only to stumble onto the TARDIS and trap Sarah Jane in it and transport it up to their ship before stumbling onto the Doctor and interrogating both separately with no luck, deciding to execute them once they're reunited. The Doctor and Sarah Jane manage to escape through a window, only to be cornered by the same strange entity that had killed people before, only managing to get away when a guard tries shooting it and is subsequently killed for his efforts. After observing the corpse of that particular guard, the Doctor and Sarah Jane manage to escape being after their pursuit again, and also avoid the creature until they stop to look over this like random hole that they seem to notice isn't a lake or anything or whatever they thought it was. Only to be captured with the token blackguard randomly just kind of convulsing in pain and falling down the hole. When they're back on the ship, they try to take off, only for the entity to prevent them from doing so, killing a few of the guards who go out to fight it, until they take the Doctor's advice relating to how to handle their shields. The Doctor then agrees to confront the entity to communicate their willingness to put the antimatter material back that Sorensen had taken, only to seemingly be attacked, fall into the hole, somehow manage to come back out of it again when Sarah Jane goes to find him, and collapsing not long after. The man named Wyszynski sees this and decides to rescue them before they attempt to take off again, with Sorensen seeming to be affected by the antimatter from Zeta Minor. He still has, and kills a guard, trying to pin it on the Doctor and Sarah with unfortunate ease. Sorensen kills again, only for the Doctor and Sarah to be blamed, and Salamar, the military leader, to attempt to jettison them from the ship, but it's interrupted by another death, and the Doctor finally realizes Sorensen is behind the killings, having essentially become antimatter himself. Salamar finally flips his lid and tries to attack Sorensen, only to die and make things worse because the radiation source he was trying to use to attack Sorensen has allowed Sorensen to split into multiple antimatter entities. The Doctor confronts the original Sorensen and knocks him out, dragging him into the TARDIS and restraining him and taking him back down to the planet. Sorensen breaks free but is shoved down the hole, causing the multiples of him to disappear. And the Doctor also threw the antimatter material in there as well, causing the multiples of him to disappear in the ship to be able to get away from the planet because it was being dragged back towards it. Sorensen is spat back out, fully restored, but with seemingly no memory of anything that's happened, with Wyszynski thanking the Doctor and Sarah before they leave in the TARDIS. The end.
All right.
Alright. That was 3 minutes, 48 seconds.
Not bad for a four-parter.
Yep.
All right, so let's talk about what we liked about this episode or this serial. Bill, you are first this week. It's not Matt.
Maybe.
So I guess I kind of like the premise with Sorensen. He was somebody who was just trying to do positive things with his scientific findings, and then just kind of stumbled across a side effect that he wasn't aware of, which I think is a positive change from some of the alien-style uber capitalists that don't give a fuck about, what could go wrong as long as they make money from it.
Yeah, supposedly he was aware that there's a possibility of some of this stuff, but he was not prepared for how strong it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
He was basically determined that his theory was right and he could get, an unlimited energy harvest from this, but
Yeah.
that was more of a scientist refusing to believe he was incorrect.
But after
Which,
enough side effects,
knowing a few scientists, they're actually mostly like that.
Mm-hmm.
that being said,
Especially since he seemed to be a very old school hierarchical scientist, and I definitely believed his characterization in every way.
that being said, when enough side effects happened and the Doctor finally reached him on a calm level, he's finally like, "Oh shit, you're absolutely right," and went about at least trying to start to stop things before the transformation kicked in again.
Unfortunately, he was too late, but still.
He almost got there.
Thomas, what did you like about this serial?
Honestly, just the Sarah Jane and the Doctor's interactions. Because it's like It's been a week. And just watching those two play off each other was just like, yes, this gives me life.
All right. Matt?
Well, obviously those two are very good, but I want to give extra kudos to the guys who made the sets on this one. The spaceship seems very roomy and open until you get to the narrow corridors, which then the corridors start getting samey, but that's to be expected, and they don't really waste too much time in there, to be honest. And then there's the outdoor set, which I do believe it is all set, and it was massive by the looks of some of this stuff there. Maybe they
It looked like
rearranged
that.
things and stuff to help make it look bigger, but
I think mostly they filmed it from different angles, but yeah.
well, it was big enough that they had a pool section to it, and they would not always be running in water. And they would have mist floating over it real nicely, and then you would change lighting and position of a few things, and it was just nothing but dry land. They just did wonders with that fake outdoor set. And that's one of the things I always kind of remember about this one in particular, because there's a couple of good scenes that happen out there.
All right. As for me, I liked the visual effects they did.
Mhm.
I mean, they made the antimatter monsters basically using a form of rotoscoping.
Yeah.
It was primitive as fuck rotoscoping, but it worked.
It was like a digital rotoscope of some kind, because I've seen it before. And
But
it was very experimental, but it was very well done.
It worked very well for this particular kind of monster.
Mhm.
Bill had posted a picture he found earlier of what must have been test footage they made using the monster, only it only had a fade effect on it. And that didn't look half as good. So you could tell at this point the director went, nope, this ain't working.
I'm not sure if that's actually the test footage for it. I do know though that there are a couple of solid pictures of that costume though too. So it might have been just that, like I said, it's kind of a digital rotoscope. So maybe they actually filmed the actual costume and then put through the digital process to make the effect.
Well, I'm pretty sure they did, but it looks like they initially tried a fade effect on it to make it transparent.
Yeah, I'm not sure where
And
the fade effect comes from, because I think I've seen the exact same pose. Let me double check. Yeah, there's that. And now if I look up at the solid picture of it, oh, actually, the arm position of the arms have changed, so I don't know. I'm hard to say for sure on that.
I'm pretty sure, like I said, the director took a look at an initial cut and went, nah, this isn't working. So we need something that looks even more vague. Let's try this. And the special effects guy probably did some brain shooting and came up with this primitive rotoscoping that worked. And like I said, it just worked well.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about what we didn't like about the episode. Bill.
So I'm going to say Salamar.
Oh,
He
God
just
damn it,
seemed
because that was mine.
he just seemed a stereotype and a cliche, and that sort of character who's written to be as much of an obstacle for everyone as possible, so that there's a plot rather than going about things in a way that an actual person would. And some of his things, like I could see some of his conflicts actually happening, but they kind of took that, where like a 9 or an 8 would have been believable, and amped it up to 11.
James T. Kirk, he wasn't.
He was one of my issues, so I'm
He-
going to throw in here as well.
He
My
was,
number
he was
one.
Kirk from the episode where he got split into the two different people. The I am Captain Kirk episode. That's what Salamar was.
My number one issue with Salmar is that he is a complete and total idiot for anyone who talks to him first.
Yeah.
He literally was mouthing off to the scientist guy, telling him off, and that there are technically a military thing first, and then they need to get going. And then as soon as the military guy wants to force feed him some bullshit info, he immediately 100% believes him and doesn't find the scientist guy stupid or annoying anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a heel turn.
Yeah, like at first you can be like, okay, well, the Doctor and Sarah Jane came out of nowhere, so him being suspicious is like, okay, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Mhm.
But then by the end of it, where he's basically a raving lunatic, it's like,
He's
where
a
the fuck
raving
did this
lunatic
come
waving around
from?
radiation and
Yeah.
wants to immediately murder the two main characters. It's just like, okay, dude.
I mean,
Mm.
if the power had given Sorensen some kind of like telepathic ability to like
Mhm.
dominate somebody,
I
seeing
could
that form of
understand that. It would be
form of
cliche, but I
evolution
understand it.
Mhm.
in the character would have been understandable. But no, he just says, no,
Mm.
it's got to be them. And suddenly he's like,
Right.
yes, you're right.
It'd be one thing if they were like he was exposed and he's going through that same sort of bizarro transformation, but
Yeah,
he
that
Yeah.
too. Maybe on some sort of level too, maybe. But it's not what they say. It's just him being a raving lunatic. Oh yeah, and also him screeching like a child about him needing to be leader.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me a little bit of the devolution of the character in Kinda.
Yep.
But that did it 1,000 times better.
That
Oh,
was
yeah.
actually a person legitimately having a mental breakdown, whereas this guy's
Mhm.
just a childish loony.
Well, I think that was supposed to be the case, as he was supposed to be having a mental breakdown, but they didn't do
Mm.
it well.
No, they
Right.
did it
Yeah,
extremely poorly.
Yeah, he just goes from being annoyed to insane and
If anything, he seemed like
randomly.
the type of person who would interrupt an election to declare that it was a fraud.
Bad Bill, get back in your corner, sit down, put on the cap. You know what you did.
No
Shame.
regrets.
Okay, all right. No more comparing characters in Doctor Who to the Orange Cheeto, please.
We're here for escapism, please.
Anyway, but yeah, it does. I think he's supposed to have a stress of command mental breakdown, but there's no slow devolution into it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's
It's
just plain
Actually,
simple bad
to
writing.
make a non-political reference, it's sort of like the argument I was having with someone about Game of Thrones season 8.
I wish I could make a comparison. I never watched it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I heard it was Terra bad, and I just was like,
That's all I need to know. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, Thomas gets it.
Anyway, but yeah, it's like they flipped a switch from
Yeah.
cautious to lunatic, and he's going like 100% in either direction. So yeah, there's no. They flipped a switch when they needed to slowly turn a knob. Yeah.
Hmm.
And
I guess did anyone actually have backups? Because I didn't. So
yeah, that was my main too.
Yeah, he's just such a confoundingly dumb, annoying character.
That
And just
there
poorly
really
written.
there really isn't anything else to bitch about in this episode.
Yeah, not really.
Hmm.
He's like the main elephant in the room.
Yeah, like everything else I could maybe
They-
think of would just be too nitpicky to really.
The
bring
only
up.
other nitpick I have is they went all their way to make sure that this wasn't an Earth planet, not an Earth society, and yet you have Professor Sorensen and what was the other guy that you brought up in the summary?
The old guy, you mean?
Yeah.
Vyshinsky or something like that.
Yeah, which is all very Earth names.
Yeah.
So, they gave the leader a name you would not normally give somebody. But then you have most of the other characters are like Sorensen, Vyshinsky, Dahan, Baldwin, O'Hara. I mean, this sounds like the cast crew of the Enterprise. It really does.
Just about.
It sounds like I'm listing red shirts. Yes, we'll be beaming down to the planet with myself, Spock, Dr. McCoy, and Vyshinsky, and
Oh,
Lieutenant
shit.
Baldwin. Yeah. This is what it sounds like, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Myself, Spock, Dr. McCoy, Scotty, and Ensign Wyszynski, and Lieutenant O'Hara. Yeah.
Oh crap.
It's literally that kind of it's those kind of names. They're very Earth names for a society that they went out of their way in writing to not be Earth. That was it, Morestrin.
Totally not Earth. They're just
Yeah.
humanoids.
Now it's obviously was a society that came from Earth,
Quite
but you've
possibly.
got to add 30,000 years of development to that. And you don't think you would be seeing names like O'Hara and Baldwin.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think names like O'Hara and Baldwin were in human society 30,000 years ago?
I mean, I guess it's slightly better than the society that said French was a dead language and named someone Jean-Luc Picard.
Them's fighting words. That's some serious fighting words right there.
Just saying, continuity.
They had to have him played by an Englishman.
Yep.
All right, so favorite scenes, Bill.
Favorite scenes? Ah, shit. I had the thought and then I didn't like fixate on it, but I. Bill, damn it. Oh, I think I'm going to go with the scenes where Sorensen started to see his transformation. I especially like the way they use the mirror to make it a sort of Jekyll and Hyde situation to kind of.
God damn it, Bill!
Am I stealing all of yours?
Yes.
But yeah, it kind of foreshadowed the way that like it was going to be a not his regular mind. With even though we didn't know what this transformation was going to entail. I thought that was pretty effective.
I would like to make a clarification on your analogy.
Okay.
It's more of an inverted Jekyll and Hyde scenario. He had to keep taking the potion to keep his humanity.
Yeah.
So it was like he was.
I thought they said the potion was why he was.
No,
the reason why it was happening in the first place is because he was around this stuff too much.
Yeah, he was around.
Oh, I see. Okay, because I remember they said the potion was like curing a condition, but I thought it was cured the condition but caused the transformation.
No,
no.
What was happening was the fact that he had gotten this anti-quark bombardment in his body. The potion kept he thought the potion was a perfect shielding for this anti-quark bombardment, but unfortunately it only works for so long. It only keeps so much of it away, and eventually his body got saturated, so it wasn't effective anymore.
He was just delaying the inevitable, if anything.
Correct.
Yeah.
By the way, do you know how they did that effect? Because I believe I know how they did that effect with the eyes and stuff.
How?
The material that they put over his eyes is the same material that they used for the Superman movie when the people are on Krypton. It's the same material. They just cut it off and put it over his eyes, and then what you have to do is you have to angle a different colored light in there, and it should like super reflect it. It's more or less the same material as you use for like reflective vests nowadays and stuff like that.
See, and I would have thought they did like a like painted the film strip or something.
No. That would have been too costly and too time consuming.
I would have thought they just put blue over his eyes and then VSO'd the red effect.
No, I noticed there's a particular texture to the material on his eyes, so I knew exactly what it was. And I will hand it to them. It's experimental, but also still, again, very effective.
And mind you, this is a good 3 years before Superman.
Yeah, so it was Superman. I think is the one that actually popularized the material. It's just that they happened to have some of it on hand, possibly, and decided to experiment with it on Doctor Who.
Well, yeah, like I said though, this was a good 3 years before or so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Thomas.
The scene where sort of like the first time in that little like base that pretty much like Sorensen's the only one left of is dead, and they've got the doctor and Sarah locked up in that room, and they're just like, we could just try escaping. It's like, how? It's like, well, we can go through the window. Yeah, the window is magnetically sealed. Yeah, and the power's low. The doctor's just like, oh yeah, right. And
It's the
gives it a
reverse
try.
of a normal doctor companion dialogue, because it's Sarah Jane with the idea, and the doctor being the doubting Thomas until she drops the bomb. Normally, it would be the opposite way.
I think that's one of the things with second and third season companions that happens more and more often.
Mm-hmm. Just that they remember the little one little detail here or there that's just like, oh, all right.
Actually, the bomb was the fact that the doctor didn't know the power was low. Sarah overheard it while she was on the bridge.
Actually, no, the doctor knew it was low because they were having issues getting stuff lit up in the ship.
Yeah,
he just didn't think of that while also thinking of trying to escape.
Yeah, but I think he would assume that they had taken a charging pack from the ship. But the ship itself was low on fuel too, so they couldn't afford to do that. Because Sarah overheard the fact that, yeah, if we don't do this, then we're not going to have enough power. So, and I mean, that was like literally 2 scenes before that scene. So, I think that's where she knew it, but maybe it just didn't come off right. I don't know. Matt.
Favorite scene. Oddly enough, there's that one little bit where the doctor first walks off to find the void hole where the antimatter creature is coming from. There's this one little clip in particular that's as he's leaving the ship, you first see the little robot that's trailing him, and then you get this ground level shot of him slowly coming through the mist and walking around the strange alien plants. That's just like always, for whatever weird reason, a scene that I keep seeing not only popping up frequently in like advertisement media for Doctor Who, especially for Fourth Doctor, but it's just this really iconic moment of the Doctor just walking off and facing whatever threat is beset upon him and others. And just a really memorable scene for whatever strange reason. It just seems to be one that catches people.
So mine is kind of related to that one, and that's the launching of the probe.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was like, wow, they did a really good job on that little eye in the probe thing.
Mm-hmm. It lights up and moves and everything.
Yeah, I'm like, that looks really cool. This is 1975? This is Doctor Who 1975? What the fuck?
I mean, yeah, even when it's flying around, you can't really see any. At least I didn't notice the strings or whatever that it was running along.
Yeah, the few times we see it swinging around on set, we don't notice any strings. Occasionally, it is just like a little, maybe added on effect in the corner. But even then, it's not like they're being careful with the camera, so they can make it pass around stuff that would have to dodge around. The few close-up shots are usually pretty well done, and they don't linger on too long, and there's no noticeable major flaws in it, and it's usually at least semi-animated, even during the close-ups.
Yeah, that was a nice little... I mean, it wasn't an animatronic, but it looked really nice. All right, least favorite scene.
So, this is... You could argue this is cheating because in some ways it's an aspect of the episode, but the scene that I felt the annoyance was a specific scene. So I'm going to count it. And that is when they revealed that the doctor had promised to get the antimatter and bring it back to the hole. I guess he had talked to the hole off screen. And partially just that, the fact that he apparently had talked to the hole off screen And then just the fact that that idea just seemed like a ripoff of another of Death episode, Ambassadors of Death, um, except without the actual conversation happening.
Well, it was supposed to be some kind of like telepathic communication, I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah, it was in
Mm.
the antimatter zone, and it was kind
They
of
had the
freaky and weird
technology for a
anyways.
voiceover.
I think that's a nitpick, Bill.
It is a bit of a nitpick. We didn't need
But
to be there
I
to
think
know
it was
what
probably
happened.
more the fact that it felt like it was just a knockoff of the Ambassadors of Death plot than anything else.
Well, I'm pretty sure the main reason they wanted it is they didn't want us to know if the Doctor was alive or dead through that
Mm-hmm.
through that cliffhanger, and until Sarah gets a chance to talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess you could argue that like it's a bit overly explaining when he does have to be like, "Here's what happened."
If he
It's
had
like-
just said something like even if he had just said something like, "Oh, you know, I discovered that the antimatter is pulling us back because of some property that I discovered in the portal when I was in it," that would have worked a lot better for me than the whole, "Oh yeah, once again I made a promise to a weird alien being to go back and fetch things and bring them back like an RPG side quest."
Well, I mean, you know, the thing is that particular one that they made was almost arbitrary in Ambassadors, or no, it was once they were on the ship.
Mhm.
Here you could tell that the whole problem was trying to leave with bits of antimatter on their ship is a bad idea. So
Right. And that's what I mean. If they had come from it with the idea that, okay, because the Doctor is you know, either just a Time Lord or a brilliant physicist or whatever, what have you, he knew that this was the cause, that would be, I don't think I would have any complaint there. But the whole fact that it was like a promise made to the whole, I feel makes it a lot worse.
well, I think it was a promise made to the entity.
Yeah, you keep referring to the hole itself as if it's an actual creature. That's not the creature. It's just the hole that comes from.
The whole is more like a gateway between, you know, this universe and the antimatter one,
Mm-hmm.
which, you know, as
It's
far
not
as we
even
know,
technically a hole. It's technically just an empty void.
you know, as far as we fucking know, it's a freaking promise to Omega, because wasn't he the ruler of the antimatter universe?
Right? Yeah, that's a very good point that I don't think the writers thought about when making this episode.
Yeah, he wouldn't have let the Doctor get away either.
Then again, I think in that episode they used the properties of antimatter a bit more, whereas in this one I think they tell you that antimatter annihilates matter, and then instead they just treat it as a weird type of energy that has nothing to do with antimatter.
They mention it, but the fact is that there is a stable portal between the two universes that's not in the middle of constant annihilation is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
there's a couple of weird little loopy holes, so they're adding some different things to how it affects stuff.
But, you know, the whole concept is this is supposed to be on the ass end of the universe.
Mm-hmm. Where weird stuff is going to be happening anyways.
Yeah.
Space is warped and time is bendable.
All right, Thomas, your least favorite scene.
Honestly, probably just because like I would have skipped over it otherwise, but it was just so bizarre that I had to put it in the summary. Is that like when they're getting captured at the hole, and then the black dude just randomly like has a stroke and falls in the thing? It's like, what the fuck happened?
It was a bit confusing, but I do think what supposedly was supposed to be happening is that I got too close to the hole and was getting pulled in.
I think it was supposed to be he lost his footing, but
It's like
it didn't act well. That one was not directed.
Yeah, that was not directed
Yeah.
well. That was on the actor and the director at that point.
Yeah, because he's just like he's trying to help restrain Sarah Jane, and then just suddenly I've been overcome with something, and oh no, and falls into the hole. It's like, okay, what?
It would have been nice if they'd had him like had his foot on a rock or something as he was doing that.
Yeah.
And then the rock gave way and he lost his balance and fell in the hole.
Or again, if it was just that he was too close to the hole, if they would actually like closed up on his footing to show that this was important, and then all of a sudden the moment he stops right next to the hole and he starts immediately, that
So,
would explain it.
by the way, is it the Trekkie in me, or was it my mental thought that their uniforms were the wrong color and their security forces should have been in red?
I think that's a little bit of the Trekkie in you.
Yeah, I think so.
By the way, that's the interesting thing to bring up too, is that the uniforms are actually kind of nicely done, even if they were
yeah.
a little, again, on the cheaper 1970s side,
Look,
but they weren't bad.
They looked like uniforms.
They looked like uniforms, and
Yeah.
it wasn't a uniform we've seen used to death on BBC, so kudos and a thumbs up.
Anyway, Matt, we're at you.
Least favorite scene?
Yes.
Crazy McDirtpants pulls out a radioactive thing because throwing radioactive energy at an energy monster is totally going to be effective.
Yeah, well,
Just like throwing nukes at a giant nuclear lizard.
He was at that point. He was madder than a hatter anyway. So
only because the script went stupid, just for him.
Well, no. I like I said, I think he was supposed to be having a breakdown. The script wasn't stupid there. It was stupid in the middle where he should have been having his breakdown.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The script just went bonkers for him for whatever reason. I'm just like, ugh, okay.
He should have been having his breakdown in Act 2. That was in Act 3 where he should have been completely unhinged, which he was, but you never really saw how he got there.
He was, but he just basically stubbed his toe and became unhinged.
Like I said, I blame Act 2. All right, my least favorite scene. I had one, I lost it. Where'd it go? Oh, yeah. So the doctor orders them, and they agree to take all the material off the ship. And these two guys, who are bitching about it, take the material off the ship. They take two each, and leave two. Now, I don't know about you, but I probably could have taken 3.
Yeah. I could have easily taken 3. And also,
and that meant I only would have had to make that trip once.
Mm-hmm.
And they were bitching about how big of a trip it took. Or, 30th century technology, you think they would have had some kind of grav sled or at least a fucking cart.
Or here's also another thing. Maybe someone should have had the memory to remember that there was more than just one container left behind.
Yeah.
That too. It just seemed like it was kind of stupid. All right. Final thoughts. And I'll let you guide through this till the end because I need to step away for a moment.
Okay. Yep. So I would be first there.
Yep.
And my final thoughts are, it was okay. I don't think it really shined as an episode. The plot felt somewhat generic. There were some characters that were not too bad, but the more standout character was a little annoying, but not like uber annoying to the point where, I hate the episode now. It's just kind of okay. Kind of the same thing even with the Doctor and Sarah Jane. They weren't bad, but I've definitely seen episodes where their banter was much more interesting. So overall, it just comes out as kind of an okay episode. Thomas?
I liked it. There were things where even I was like as soon as Andy Matter came up, I'm like, okay, what little I know about that, a lot of things in this shouldn't be happening the way they are. But oh well, fuck it. It's Doctor Who. They don't really go for hard sci-fi, so I'll let it slide. I feel like most of the acting picks it up. And for whatever shortcomings it has for me. I wouldn't say it's like, greatest Tom Baker story I've seen or anything. but I'd say it's at least slightly above average. I don't know. Although I will say I was distracted a lot by the fact that certain angles, at least to me, made Sorensen look like he could be Andy Serkis's dad. So it was just like, huh, that's a weird.
Now, if the
Like, I just
director had
got
only
hung up
thought
on
of
that.
yeah, take a couple shots, one with the modified monster look, one without. Have him talk to himself.
Yeah, like, I don't know.
He needs it, my precious. He needs the enemy. We need the energy.
It's a pit on my head, boss. Oh, precious.
Yeah, I think really this is like with a few tweaks here and there, this could have been generally better because there's like a few failings of it, but otherwise I think it's okay.
All right,
So I
Matt.
believe it goes to me. Yep. I do feel like there's been episodes with Sarah Jane and the Fourth Doctor that did have snappier dialogues, but at the same time, I will say that there was more time spent on this particularly weird event where, yes, antimatter is not immediately blowing regular matter up to Kingdom Come, and I feel like they added enough detail to it, especially with the whole weirdness of the edge of space bit, that I guess there's enough hand waving for pseudoscience to make me just go, okay, I'm following your weird science for right now. Weird stuff happens
Weird
sometimes.
science.
Yeah. Oddly, I've been on an Oingo Boingo kick. Um, most of the secondary characters were fine, except for McFlip my lid. Um, just for whatever reason, the last half of him is just absolutely terrible. He was at least tolerable to okay in the first half, and then he just went completely off the rails and lost it. And I mostly blame bad script and the actor trying to do the best he could with what he was given in the script. Um, that being said, the visual effects are still really good. A lot of the set work is really nicely done. There's just a lot going on that I overall really like about this that I can forgive one character being very poorly written.
You done?
Yep.
Okay. So the writing on this was interesting. I'm not going to say if it's good or bad because, the whole concept is just kind of out there. They really do not go out of their way to explain why antimatter could interact with matter, other than it's at the edge of the universe, which
And hand wave.
is kind of a bullshit excuse.
Should have been E-Space Matter.
And yeah, the character dialogue, the act 2 where this guy has his nervous breakdown is missing. And I think possibly there was some deleted supporting dialogue that, he was stressed out after a particularly bad mission or something and would have had the moment of snap, but they just, edited it out for whatever reason, time, whatever. And it just kind of had him go from one to another very rapidly and very jarringly. That's a good term. I like that.
Mm-hmm. It lacked actual proper motivation.
Visually, this is better than a lot of Doctor Who of the era.
Oh yeah.
The sets, I think, were possibly redresses from Planet of the Daleks, but with stuff added to it to make it even more diverse. The ship sets were nice. I love the fact that there was even little stencils that said like authorized personnel only beyond this point.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of stuff. That little pieces of just world building that just really makes it work. And makes it more believable. This costuming was decent. It all made sense in that aspect. And the acting was very decent for most of the characters. Yes, we had problems with the one character, but I can't tell if that's the acting, the directing, or the writing. I honestly can't. There are a few things where the director should have probably reshot a couple things, but again, this is 1970s Doctor Who. Reshoots aren't that often.
Only if it's a major botch.
Yep. So I would say this is a fairly good episode. Not the best, but good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's rate this bad boy. Where is my... Get up there. My mouse is not wanting to behave. It's being a bad boy. All right.
I already feel like I'm going to get yelled at.
Oh, Bill.
Why? What are you rating it,
Are
Bill?
you being super negative again, Bill?
I don't think this was good enough to push it up to a 4, so it hits at a 3.5.
Really?
Bill?
Jesus.
Bill, are you even a Doctor Who fan?
I would say yeah.
Are you sure about that? Check your pulse,
Are
maybe.
you sure your name's Bill and not Mikey? He won't eat it. He hates everything.
You got matches for Mikey?
All right, Thomas.
I feel like the issues I have with it are just enough to bring it down a bit, so I'm giving it a 4.
4.0. All right, Matt.
The science is a little hand wavy, and we have one guy who just went up our for stubbing his toe. That's the only negatives for me. So 4.5.
5, and I'm going to agree with Thomas and give it a 4. Like I said, it's good. It's not great.
I need your counterbalance, Bill.
And that will average us to a 4.0, which makes Thomas and me right. And Bill and Matt wrong.
That's your opinion.
And mine's the only one that matters.
And so's mine. And mine. Me, myself, and I don't agree with you, but agree with ourselves.
And that will put it at number 174 out of 363 things reviewed. It is on par with Frontios, which we reviewed at the end of last season, Carnival of Monsters, The Censorites, The Aztecs, A Good Man Goes to War, Attack of the Cybermen, The Runaway Bride, Vengeance on Varos, Heaven Sent, Terminus.
Lots of good stuff there.
Yep, The Invisible Enemy, Castrovalva, Light at the End, Planet of the Spiders. Yeah, this is our average.
A lump of our good average.
Rose and Spyfall. It is better than Knock Knock, The Deadly Assassin, The Brain of Morbius, Colony in Space, Warriors Gate, Into the Doctor, etc. And is not as good as Oxygen, The Daemons, The Pilot, The Space Museum, Can You Hear Me, It Takes You Away, Closing Time, etc. Once again, that is 174 of 363. That is all we have to say about Planet of Evil.
All right, so those listening, please let us know in the comments what you think about the episode. Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Did you think it was just okay? Don't forget to like or dislike the video and subscribe to keep getting our YouTube updates, or follow to get our streams live on Twitch.
Also, tell us in the comments if you still think Bill's a fan.
Next week, we will continue our Fourth Doctor serials we've yet to review. We finished season 13 with The Seeds of Doom, written by Robert Banks Stewart and starring Tom Baker as the Doctor and Elizabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane Smith. See you then if I'm not dead.
Good night.